Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to Social Media Fridays on Monday, episode 81. Each week we meet here to discuss what happened in the past week in the world of social media, and tonight we're also going to talk about what happened this year. You can make your own posts and you can join us on the panel. You can find us in the Social Media Fridays community on Google+. Don't try to search for us though, you might as well go to Google Organic Search if you're searching for the Social Media Fridays community. All right, actually I'm probably wrong, it probably works, but SEO Questions doesn't. Anyway. All right, our first question tonight, or our first topic, is on educated Germans avoiding social media. Edwin posted this one. Tell us about it, Edwin.
I have it somewhere. Where was it? Oh, here. This was posted on Deutsche Welle. And the interesting thing is that the higher formal education, the more use of social media, except for Germany. It's vice versa. The higher education, the lower the use of social media. And why that is? Maybe just trust more in institutions, so they don't rely for news on Facebook or on Twitter. They actually have a newspaper or subscription to a newspaper instead of following people on Twitter or Facebook. I don't know.
Well, I'm looking at that graph on the OECD document, and it looks like in Switzerland as well, it's almost equal, I think, in terms of no or low formal education users and high formal educations, the percentages of those two groups using social media. But it is only in Germany that is clearly visible. So I think from the chart, it looks like about 50% of those who have been classified as no or low formal education use social media, whereas for high formal education, that it's about 42% or something like that, and that is low. And if you aggregate the two, so if you assume, I don't know what the proportions of the two groups, but the overall social media usage might be lower compared to other European countries. So if you, for example, look at Norway, that it looks like for both groups, the social media usage rate is above 70%. Denmark, similarly, about 70% range, and that's for both groups, no or low formal education and high formal education. And in other European countries, there are the gap between high formal education users and no or low formal education users, but they tend to be small. So if you look at the Netherlands, Estonia, Sweden, Slovakia, Finland, then the differences are a couple of percentages or few percentage points. Whereas if you go to other countries, then there is a noticeable gap between the two groups. So those with high formal education tend to be using a lot more than tend to use social media more frequently than no or low formal education. So if you look, if there's a chart, and if I'm looking at the figures, for example, for Belgium, the share of social media users for high formal education is about 60%. But for no or low formal education, it's 40%. So there is a 20% gap between those two groups. Similarly, such wide disparity is apparent in many other countries, including Italy, Ireland, Spain, Britain, Hungary, Portugal, Greece, and Turkey. So I think I find that more interesting, that there's a huge gap between the two groups in many countries, rather than what's happening in Germany. But about the German situation, I think part of it is, as Edwin suggested, that people have more formalized education in the sense that they are, they go through the university system and so on and so forth. Newspapers are still very important. They have a lot of local newspapers as well. They have very few national papers. Many of them are very much local. Print industry, I think, is still important, more important than perhaps in Britain or the US. So it may be that there may be distrust. There may be a stronger sense of distrust and skepticism towards private companies holding a lot of data about themselves, about them. So that could be an issue.
Yeah.
Well, I think also that because it is mentioned here, especially on the rural areas in Turkey, where there are a lot of low formal education, so no internet. So
Yeah.
you cannot use social media if there's no internet and you have a low formal education, right?
Yeah, I think so. So in a sense, it's always a bit difficult with these kind of data because we're talking, comparing apples and oranges really at times, and it is certainly odd that in Germany it seems that the fewer proportion or smaller proportion of highly educated people using social media compared to those with lower educational backgrounds. But it may be that because the opportunities in terms of internet access, most people in Germany have a similar environment compared to, let's say, Turkey, where if you're not highly educated, you might not have the means to access the internet. So, in that sense, people may be using the internet as such, but they're not interested in using social media. That's another possibility. People might be using a lot of email or internal systems for work, but then they see no reason to go on social media. So it might be a choice issue. It's hard to say. I think I wouldn't really be too what would be the right word? I wouldn't make too much of that data. What I think is interesting is that overall share of users in Germany is lower than in many other countries. I think that's interesting.
Yeah. Don't they practically ban social media in Turkey? Is Facebook blocked there?
I'm not sure, but it was for a period.
Yeah,
and I think they proxied Google's DNS, right? So then through Google you could go to Twitter or Facebook. But in Germany, Facebook and other social media are, in comparing to other countries, heavily censored because of anti-Nazi law.
Yeah, I think that might be a potential issue, and of course Germany has it. own social media landscape. They have that, I don't know how to pronounce it, xing.com, which is essentially like a LinkedIn system. So it's for professional people to connect with one another. So they have that section, which is slightly different from other countries, as it were, within Europe, I think. And they have a sort of social media that's based on university students and then for general population, Studiefazit and Meinefazit. So it's social media landscape itself is slightly different from, I think, many other European countries. If you look at Britain, I think Nordic countries, we're talking about Facebook, we're talking about Twitter as being the major social media networks. I'm not on LinkedIn if you're in sort of professional capacity and trying to connect with other people in your industry or looking for a job, whereas in Germany that might be slightly different. So that might be contributing to that effect as well.
Yeah. I'm just looking up the pronunciation of Zing.
Zing? Is it Zing? Shing? I don't know. Is it? I don't know.
It seems like it's Zing.
Zing, okay. So I know a few people from Germany, and they are on that, not on LinkedIn, for example. So
all right. Let's move on to the next. This one is a huge article. It's so big that well, it's just a huge article. It's the Web Privacy Census, but the revelations are impressive too. The quote is, in 2015, with a deep crawl, we detected cookies on 95% of the top 1,000 websites. In total, there were 134,769 HTTP cookies for the top 1,000 websites, compared to about half of that number in 2012. 130 sites placed 300 or more cookies. What could you do? How could you eat so many cookies?
I don't know. Probably a cookie monster, right? So the deep crawl, what I did there was they went to the homepage and then took two extra links. So basically they crawled three pages deep within the site, and then a number of cookies were counted. It's quite disturbing how many cookies there are being set. There were even from the top 1,000 sites, there were 88 sites that had more than 350 cookies. So that's huge.
It's not just the storage of those cookies that they're placing, but there'd also be computational a computational cost while they query for those cookies on the next visit.
Yeah. I think especially those with high number of cookies, the mobile users will suffer from this. Especially if you're on a low bandwidth or far away from the mobile tower. This will this will hurt your loading speed. No, or
Yeah, well, by the look of in that article, I read that the HTML5 cookies use local storage and can be up to 5 megabytes in size. A normal cookie
yeah,
can only be 4 kilobytes. It's no big
there's
burden, but
actually,
it's still.
and
Go
with
ahead,
local
Edward.
storage, the nice thing that is you can create a wildcard subdomain, and on every subdomain you can have 5 megabytes. From memory, it was limited on Google Chrome. Maybe it's also limited now on Firefox. But when a local storage was released as stable within the browsers, you could have as many local storage subdomains as you wanted. Basically, you could crash the browser with local storage. So you can have much more than 5 megabit in local storage.
Mm.
What they
Somewhere
didn't
there's
look at.
You go ahead.
What they didn't look at was at the fingerprinting by drawing images. Right? Every browser can draw an image, and every browser on a specific system draws an image a slightly different way. So you could basically fingerprint a browser by looking at those particular images. Of course, it can be used for advertisements, but can also be used for security, right? So that you know, oh, right, this particular user was in the last session was also on this browser on this machine. Now he's on the same browser and same machine, so let's give him access. So it's not always a bad thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this really shows why people hate third-party cookies and why people block third-party cookies. Why there are browser plugins like AdBlocker. Right? If you're doing more than let's say 200 cookies, just to be generous here, that's just too much.
Mm. Yeah, it's out of control.
Don't you agree?
Yeah, I agree, totally.
Yeah, and then you shouldn't be surprised because I assume a lot of publishers are in those top 1% sites. You shouldn't be surprised that people are installing ad blockers and block third-party keys and other things. So yeah.
Yeah, I shouldn't complain. For a long time, I made my living with cookies, but I certainly wouldn't impose 300 cookies on every mobile trying to maintain a tenuous connection from a 1 bar connection to a mobile tower. It's just not fair.
No, indeed. And there's also the flash cookies, which are quite annoying.
Because on Chrome you can see how many cookies there are. Well, you can see it on all browsers too, but if you click on that, if it's a secure site on a padlock, if not on that page thing, in the address bar, it will say how many cookies from this site and how many cookies from third-party sites. And it can be quite interesting if you go to newspaper website, then I'm looking at one and it says 46 from this site, 95 from other sites, so that's 40. So, and that seems to be quite normal.
Well, cookies are normal, but not these amounts, right?
Yeah. And if I click through to an article, what happens?
And even if you don't link, even if you don't go to 3 different URLs, if you only go to the homepage, there's still 26 sites that have more than 350 cookies displayed. So that's that cost from the homepage, right? Of that 1,000 top site.
So I clicked an article and it increased to 60 from this site and 72 from other sites. So it's actually it's a decrease. Sorry about that. But let's see about this one. Gosh, I'm seeing a huge whole page ad now. Yeah. On another newspaper site, I went click through and it has 20 from the site, 92 from other sites. I mean, it is a huge number of cookies, and a lot of them are advertisers. Cookies do serve a purpose, but a lot of them are essentially trying to track what you do on different websites, what you're reading, so that they can target you better for advertisement purposes. I'm not surprised that people are installing anti-trackers, ad blockers more and more. Yeah, I do.
I'm just looking at all the cookies that our dumbseaquestions.com site puts out, 14 cookies, because we've got Google ads on that page.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Have we done enough with the web privacy census?
I think so, yes. Good.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the next. In Brazil, a judge got a rush of blood to the head and banned the WhatsApp app for 48 hours. But within 12 hours, a higher court decided that the ban should be released because it's because of its impact. Was considered to be too much of an impact on society.
I think it was also discussed within the parliament. So just to state how much of an impact it has on Brazil, they did discuss it in parliament, I think. And WhatsApp is installed on 92 or 93% of the Android devices. So it is really a means of communication, and if you remove that, it will hurt the equity, and people don't like that.
Yeah, it's like saying, it's like banning telephone, isn't it?
Yeah, or telecom, right?
Yeah.
And the reason why it is so widely used within Brazil is because the telco is so expensive. For every text message, they have to spend, I don't know, a couple of cents probably. And WhatsApp is free, and they do charge, I think, $1 a year. But if you compare that to text messages, it's much cheaper than. WhatsApp is cheaper than the text messages. Here in Europe, we also charge per text message. And I think in the United States it's normal to have unlimited text messages.
Yeah.
But WhatsApp is not. They still have to comply, right? The reason why why WhatsApp was banned was because they had to hand over information about a criminal, and it was drug-related. So that higher judge say, well, you cannot shut down WhatsApp, but what you can do is fine them more, right? They already had paid a fine once or twice, and the lower judge said, well, if you're not going to comply, you're banned for 40 hours. Then the higher court said, well, don't ban them. Let's give them a higher fine to comply. The reaction from WhatsApp is that they can hand over the data because it is encrypted and they don't know. So they still struggle with in court.
Yeah.
As far as
And
I understand.
I don't think it's WhatsApp's job to educate the court. I mean, it's not 1995, but it's time that the legal fraternity understood the ramifications of what they were asking for, and before they start, how was do you know how the ban was implemented, Edwin?
I think that the DNS was shut down, but I'm not sure how that worked. Do you know, Mastake?
No, it's saying that the order was made to shut it after WhatsApp, despite a fine, failed to comply with 2 judicial rulings to share information in a criminal case. I don't know how they did that. Does it say?
You know how to get around if a government does remove from DNS, like they can only command the DNS servers within their own country.
Yes.
If you change your DNS lookups to query, say, Google's public DNS on 8.8.8.8 or 8.8.4.4, then that would work around that. I wouldn't be able to stop it.
Indeed. People did that in Turkey and in Egypt, I think. So, but I don't know. Maybe WhatsApp just every traffic they received from Brazil gave a 500 error. I don't know. what.
And one of their competitors picked up 1.5 million new users out of it.
Oh yeah, that was Telegram. I never used Telegram, but yeah, people have to message, right? So
yeah, they will find an alternative way. Yeah.
But it is on the other hand, it is not that great to see one player, in this case WhatsApp, to have such a massive impact, almost a monopoly over text messages, and because of that they got off the hook a little bit, right? Because maybe if it was Telegram that should have handed over those particular information or data, they would have been banned for 48 hours. But because it was on WhatsApp, and then we got banned for 12 hours. So I don't know.
Right. We covered this one. WhatsApp being banned in Brazil. All right. I see we got a viewer from Twitter on the strength of that tweet. Okay. Well, here we are. I put this in because maybe I thought you guys might like to talk about what you thought were the most significant things that came up this year. We've been watching social media now for more than a year, recording the history of social media 1 week at a time. So, is anything strike your fancy, guys?
Well, I think there were two overall themes. One is that people don't realize the impact on social media. For example, the bullying or the fake reviews. And the other one is the privacy statement, that people want to be anonymous on the web. And those two are actually conflicting, right? If you're anonymous, you can bully. And if you have a name, people can track you, right? So I think that those were the two overall themes of this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think those are really good themes. I think it's those issues had been around, but I think it's become more and more important. They become more visible. I think more people are aware of those issues.
Yeah, and also more getting convicted. I think
Yeah.
maybe in private court or in criminal court.
Yeah, and we have issues about surveillance. How much should the government snoop around about people's use of social media? That's going to be, I think, a bigger and bigger issue over the next few years, I think.
Yeah.
Well,
So.
the high point for me was picking how many users that LO.co were going to
Yes.
Wasn't that 2014 or?
Was it? This time flies. Time
Are
flies.
they still going?
Well, I think they're still there. Yeah. What else jumped out and died? Blab jumped out, and those that are on it are really excited about it. I mean, I think it has no more impact than seeing your face in a store window reflected back at you while you're on the phone. I don't think it's going to be any world beater, but some think it will. I don't know. Will we give it the kiss of death?
Depends. If they can stream it on YouTube, for example, they will survive, I think. But there has to be.
Are they letting people crawl now?
I don't know, but there has to be an integration with some other large platform, right? Maybe Facebook, maybe YouTube.
Yeah, that area is ripe for consolidation, isn't it? There are, I think over the past 2 years or so, there are lots of new video platforms where you can share streaming or videos. So, Periscope, for example, use another example, I think, in that trend of broadcasting or live broadcasting, and of course sharing videos and clips. So there are many players at the moment. It'd be interesting to see how many of them actually survive.
Yeah, but Blab is a little bit different, right? Yeah, there were all these mobile apps for small videos for a couple of seconds, 30 seconds, something like that, right? But Blab is something different, where you basically sit at the desktop and do somewhat of a hangout.
Yeah.
And you cannot do that with Periscope, can you?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Anything else?
Well,
This
I'm
says
not.
that.
If you have a, sorry to interrupt, but just let me get this one out while I go on to the next. But if you do a search for Blab on Google and look at the case version, their homepage is blank. So maybe they're not allowing. Although I did a site search, just got the results through just then. I did a site search for Tropagan, and there's 60 pages there, which Google has indexed. So yeah, they must have changed that policy. But if we have a look at the case is blank. Okay, what's the ramifications of that, guys? If you look at the robots text for blab.im, it has nothing disallowed. So in other words, it's giving free access to the crawler. But if you do a site search for blab.im and scroll down until you can find a page, well, actually, yeah, there's one for Mark Tropagan. Let's look at the cache of the page. The cache is blank.
Well,
what does that mean?
well, they do serve content. They do serve Twitter cards and Open Graph. I think the rest is loaded through JavaScript.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure about that one. Yeah.
If you open the cache and look, full version, text only version, blank. But if you look at the view source,
But they could have included the comments, right? Fine. But maybe they don't want to.
yeah. Oops. Sorry about that. I was floating about blab.im, and then suddenly something made a noise.
Yeah. And so this is all we've got for all of our toil this year. We've got.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I think one thing that you can say is that there hasn't been a really huge change. Facebook is still there, Twitter is still there, Google Plus in one form is still there, Pinterest is there, LinkedIn is there, in the sense that there hasn't been a huge change where one player has been completely knocked out of the market or someone's really barged into the market, if that makes sense. I do think there has been that kind of huge shift that you could have said in other years, where a product might have lost a lot of its users or gained a huge number of users. In the sense that if you look at, Blab is is something new and something big, but if you look at the social media platforms that most people are familiar with, what was the things that were there on 1st of January this year, they're still here.
Well, I think one of the biggest losers is Foursquare, no? This year.
Ah, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
I think they lost about 2/3 of their validation, and they lost a lot of users.
When did they change? They introduced that change. Was it last year or this year? I can't remember. They made a huge change, didn't they?
I think they changed it back because they were losing.
Yeah.
I've read about it. I don't use Foursquare.
No, neither do I. But was that last year or this year? I can't remember.
I think last year they removed a feature.
Yeah.
And this year they included the feature again. On what feature? I don't know.
Yeah. No, that was a big one. Yeah, that's a fair point, I think. Because I didn't use Foursquare, it was not in my sort of, view. Field of view.
No, I had to dig it out of my head, back of my head. So.
Yeah, but I mean the major ones. I think Facebook is there. I don't know how much has changed. I log in every so often. Twitter has been changing this and that, but it hasn't really changed. They might be going down the timeline route of showing things by relevance and things like that. But again, Twitter, as it existed on 1st of January, is still there.
I think we lost Mustake.
No, I'm still here.
Oh, okay.
I just finished what I was saying. In a sense.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought I was in the middle of the
No.
sentence.
No. Sort of, in a sense that it was perhaps a quiet year compared to others. I don't know. I may be wrong. I may be not remembering something very big. But I feel that at the moment, sort of certainly the social media in terms of sharing things and posting things in broadly, I think it's more about solidifying than something new coming in.
Hard to imagine anything new. I mean, it's hard. It is hard. I mean, what need is there that isn't filled already? Oh, my other question is, will we be here in 12 months on Google+? What do you think about that?
I think so, yeah. Or maybe back to Orkut.
Oh dear.
William Rock just plussed us on Google+. If you're one of the people watching us, William, how about joining us?
Yeah, I mean, one thing you can say about Google Plus is that it has been unstable, in that it has been changing all the time. It's still here, but it's not in the same shape as it was at the beginning of the year. So you can say, within Google Plus, I think overall landscape, you could say that much. There haven't been huge changes, but within Google Plus, there has been a series of changes. So it's been an eventful year as far as Google Plus was concerned.
So by sorry to interrupt, Masataki, but by saying that it's not in the same shape, do you mean it started the year in good shape and finished in bad?
That's a difficult one. I think what happened was that I think it's a longer process. It started a while ago. It started, I think, in 2015. But essentially, what we're seeing is a culmination of a process whereby this big idea of Google Plus being the, if you like, the focal point of what you do in Google, that kind of vision, sort of, binding everything together, the layer that, covers everything. It's an umbrella, that kind of thing. That idea is gone. I think that idea is dead and buried. So, what Google Plus has been trying to do, I think, is to be a well-defined product, just one product of many Google products and services that people can choose or choose not to use. So I think, it depends which vision for Google Plus you buy into. If you believe that Google Plus should be all this umbrella thing, this bind, the social cement, then obviously you'd argue that it's in a far worse shape than it started this year. But if you believe that Google Plus should be an optional product that people choose to use, then you'd say, yeah, it's in a far better shape than at the beginning of the year. I'm the latter group, so I think Google Plus is in a better shape than at the beginning of the year.
Fair enough. What else did Larry Page tell you?
I'm not so sure whether he's interested in Google Plus at all. But I think, I think there are real issues with Google Plus and the name and the brand now, because the brand has been associated with a previous big vision. Can it become, if you like, a niche product? And I think that can be a tricky process, because what does plus mean in that context? Google Plus, what does plus signify in the name? If you bought into that big vision, then it made sense, right? Because it's sort of ultra, it's sort of plus, it's that additional thing. But if it's just a product among many, it's not particularly descriptive. It doesn't say what it does.
It's certainly not renowned for its search capabilities anyway.
No. So yeah, I think I personally would seriously rethink about the name. But that's just me.
How would they change the name, though?
I don't know.
I mean, that's the only thing that's the peg that they hang their hat on. If they changed the name from something other than Google Plus, I wouldn't remember what it was.
Yeah. Right. I think it'd be very difficult to find a descriptive name, because Google Plus still serves a different set of purposes. I mean, you have the communities, which is, if you like, is a place, where people come along and then talk to one another, if you like. Then there are the collections, which is how you decide to organize your output. And of course, there's the stream function, that you see other people's output in your stream, so you can engage with them. So, there are still different purposes to the product, and can they come up with a neat name? I'm not 100% sure. Google Plus might still be a good name for it, but I'm not so sure whether, I think Google Plus as a brand, as a name, I think has too much baggage. But that's just me. I think, I just feel that it has too much baggage, but I think it's just me.
Any more thoughts on this one, Edwin?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think Google Plus will be here next year? Yeah. But the year after, I don't know. I think it will be gone in a few years.
I suppose we better figure out that exit strategy we've been talking about for 18 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to
All right.
diversify.
Well, I see someone's still watching us. Thank you for that. Your interest in what we do makes what we do worthwhile. We'll be back next year to do this all again. And if you'd like to join us, there is a link in the Social Media Fridays community. We're going off the air now, but you're more than welcome to join us for a chat.